Did you know you can now have your favorite greens delivered right to your door? Thanks to Duke City Dank, getting high-quality cannabis has never been easier. No more trips to the dispensary, just sit back, relax, and let Duke City Dank bring the good times to you swiftly and discreetly. So whether you're chilling at home or hosting friends, Duke City Dank has got you covered. Happy relaxing! Hello and welcome to another episode of The Greenhouse, the place where conversations take root and good vibes are always growing. I'm Victoria and I'm your guest host today. Today we have a heartwarming and insightful episode lined up for you, focusing on bridging generational gaps through conversations about cannabis. We have a special mother-daughter duo with us, Shannon and Holly Bieberich, who will share their journey of understanding and acceptance. So let's light up this session with some introductions. Shannon, Holly, thank you both for being a part of the conversation today. I know that some of our regulars may have seen you before on our YouTube lives and our streams, so give a quick introduction for those who haven't heard of you before and haven't virtually met you.
Or seen our records online. I am Shannon Bieberich. I'm the digital marketing manager for Stoner's Haven and the Greenhouse podcast. And with me is my beautiful and wonderful, I'm buttering her up before she starts talking about me, mother, Holly Bieberich.
Hello. I am Shannon's mother, Holly.
Thanks for having me, literally.
Yes. You're very welcome.
Can you share a little bit about your relationship and how cannabis entered the conversation?
Like anything, it was probably presented wrong, but with good intent. No, I am fortunate enough to have grown with her. I do want to put this disclaimer out there. If, you know, all mothers out there with their teenage daughters, just hold on tight, because we weren't always this understanding, and communication was not always this great. There was a lot of me screaming, her taking away my door, that kind of vibe. But as I matured, therapy was beautiful too. I learned that it's me, hi, I am the problem sometimes, and mothers do always know best. That is my tidbit for those daughters out there. They do. So just take my word and just never tell them they were right. But I am fortunate enough that through all this, she's become my best friend. So it's nice, you know, growing up, you hear, I'm your mom, I'm not meant to be your best friend, but at some point it did turn to, she's still my mom, and she's not afraid to ground me at 30. I don't know how that works, but yeah, I take my grounding. But she, we just hear each other differently, and I think it's just maturing as an adult and admitting my wrongs. But coming to her with this was not easy at all, because like any child, you fear that one simple sentence, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed, and you're just like, okay, let me go cry and I'll be right back. But that wasn't it at all. She was she wanted to know, she wanted to know the science behind it. She wanted to know, the logic, okay, you sound serious, which is alarming for me. I'm all jokes. A lot of people would probably say if I was on the Friends sitcom, I'm Chandler. So, I like to, so going to her with something so serious and saying, hey, it's affecting my, anxiety, my mental health, I'm scared, and that's a conversation no parent wants to hear at all. That's red flags. Okay, we need to talk about this, and coming to her, it's not like one of those situations where you see on those movies that they just present that improper stereotype of just I'm just getting it. It's not like that. It's, I can sleep at night, and she'll even sometimes be like, you're in your head. I need you to go take a gummy and circle back. So it's just, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that the probably more shocking part was that she had all this anxiety about coming to me and having the conversation, but I wasn't nearly as shocked with the conversation that she thought I would be, because, as she said, I've been her mother her whole life, and you just know when certain things are going on with your kid. You may not know exactly, you may not, know the exact details, but you know when your child is struggling with something, and, her anxiety gets the best of her, and it has for quite some time. So she searched around for, therapy, and she didn't really want to be put on meds, because you just don't know what they're, truly going to do to your body chemistry or whatnot. So I was I was very open to it because I could see how the positive reaction that it was having, and it wasn't causing her any harm in other areas of her life, like taking a gummy to get her brain to shut off so that she could sleep at night actually helped her the next day to be able to go to her job or in focus. Whereas if I had just said, from my generation that, you pothead or whatever, that was just not the way I viewed it when it was my child. Mm-hmm. And I needed her to find the right thing that was going to help her. And when she was open and honest about it, we as a whole family, I mean, her brother was in on the conversation, she sat down and she told us, I've tried this, I've tried that, that's not working, so I'm trying this now. I'm just letting you guys know in the event something does go south, you know what I've ingested.
I think that played a major role with you and him both, is like, okay, she's being an adult about this. Like, she's, if something does happen, allergic reaction or some kind of improper, she's handling this in the most mature way. So Correct. She has thought about this. And I was big on, our family, just most people, addictive personalities. It's like, I didn't want to do any prescription. And also I wanted to learn, that's why therapy was big to me. I wanted to learn with my triggers and, whatever it may be, to do it myself. I didn't want a crutch, so this is just kind of something to help me just turn the brain off. Like, it's all me, but just a little bit of a, push or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, it did help her to turn her brain off so she could rest, and it didn't give her like a hungover thing in the morning.
Like, and it wasn't like a weird zombie. Like, it was, I was still me.
Yeah. I mean, she was
funnier.
Like she said,
funnier, way funnier.
Well, that's your opinion. But like she said, there are times that I'll just go, oof, you're past your point.
It's time.
Yeah, and then it's not like she goes to her room, she takes that, and then we never see her again. She'll go, she'll take it, she comes back, and then she's able to continue the evening.
Yes.
With us.
And I will say that's key. It's just to go to bed. I'm not somebody that like needs it. It's not like, oh, I'm at work doing, like, that's not the case at all. And like anything else, it's all moderation. You're handling it properly, and I would not, by any means promote it to anyone. Like, oh, just do it all the time. Like, it's not a sense of, that's not what it's supposed to be. And that's not how, like.
Well, so speaking of, like, the promotion, so we already talked kind of about why you, what you're using cannabis for, but kind of talk to me, like, what was your thinking behind, like, I don't want to use medication, but, like, what brought cannabis into the picture?
My best friend's dad, my grandpa, I know a lot of people who've had, unfortunately, have had cancer. Fortunately, my best friend's dad, he's, still doing great, and unfortunately, like my grandpa, they weren't as fortunate, but in knowing it's something so, is detrimental the word I'm looking for? I'm trying to sound so, like, proper on this, but if it's promoted, and, I'm like, that's got to be some sort of key. So then I'm very type A. I like paper planners still, so I did my own research on it, and I knew what I didn't want with the prescriptions. My brother growing up, like most boys, they just have a lot, some anger, whatever, just play sports and get it all, it's fine. But he was on one, and I watched him become a zombie. So I knew what I didn't want, because after growing up and seeing, like, the side effects, but then after seeing positive side effects of cannabis, I was like, okay, maybe that's a route. Just research was what I started. Mm-hmm. It was never like, oh, just dive in and just, hit somebody's bong, because you should never do that. Like, that's not also what I promote. And you also know, wherever you're listening, your laws with it. So for me, technically, it's not the full, cannabis. So it's just these Delta gummies, and I buy them from an actual legitimate shop, and, you gotta research and to a T, dotted all my I's, crossed all my T's, and I went to her with that, knowing this is what I don't want and this is why. And she could agree, saying, nope, you're my kid and I know you very well, and I'm glad you know that about yourself too. So it was just kind of being honest with myself and realizing if this is gonna benefit me, I have to be completely real, and it can't just be like a party trick that I'm trying to pull the wool over someone's eye with. It's just all about being better and finding it.
Did you go out and purchase your gummies
mm-hmm.
before telling your mom what you were going to do? And did you
Yes.
Like,
Yes, she did.
She was waiting on that question. She's like, please, it's not unscripted. You guys planned it.
I think that was part of her research that she needed to do before she brought it to me.
But to be fair, I took somebody who knew, and they helped me, because it's just like going anywhere. If you look clueless when you're buying something, they're going to try and one-up you. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't want the wrong thing, all this stuff. So I brought someone who would help me, even with the flavor. They're like, you're not going to like that flavor. And I'm like, cool, thanks, I'm glad I have you. But I also knew I have very thick hair, and so I didn't want to smoke. I just wanted it to be casual. I just wanted to take a little gummy. I don't want it's not that I have a problem with people knowing. I'm a big advocate. I want to properly inform people, and if it's helpful for them, that's great. I love helping people. But I also don't, unfortunately, there is that stereotype, and that's what we're here for, is trying to change that and show there is more positives than the, promoted negatives. So, but going into it, I was like, unfortunately, we're not there yet. So the gummy, it's easier to hide, quote unquote.
Especially in a state where it's not legalized. Right.
So it's like, you say this and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta make sure I promote Delta, the specifics. But that's not her. She's never, and my brother's never. And so nobody in my direct line of family or whatever, but I did have close friends and their parents that I was like, hey, I still took someone responsible with me to do it. And then going to her, and I think it was Gatlinburg, was the first, and I told them. So they were there. They didn't go in the shop with me or anything, but I told them, I showed them, and weirdly enough, it was unfortunately not a good batch that week, and I got weird. But it
got weird?
Yeah, it was
very,
it was back when synthetic was kind of a thing, and so unfortunately, it was a fruity pebble bar, and
it was like a Rice Krispie.
I lost all my training, and I just got excited. It was like a kid in a candy store, literally, and I was like, that looks so good, and I asked less questions than I usually know to ask, and but I told them and I showed them and I took the normal amount. So with me, I know you don't take a whole edible. You should never. I took my normal, and then all of a sudden I looked at her. I was like, "Is my face melting?"
Yeah.
And then I was trying to grab like raccoons outside, and my brother was like, "Please don't jump up," like the balcony. It wasn't that dramatic.
There really were raccoons.
But it was in that moment that I was very glad, and I knew they were glad. Like, I'm glad she's open and honest, because this can happen to anyone, like with anything.
Right, you didn't want them to take you to hospital because they thought you were having a manic episode or something.
Right, and then they inject me with something that's actually worse for that kind of reaction. So it's just learning curves and everything, but it's just been nice to be honest.
It was very lovely to have the first experience be that, where she thought her face was melting off. We're like, okay, so this is worst case scenario.
Don't worry, it was not. We're good. Her face was
fine.
fine.
Your face was fine, and those were real raccoons.
And verbatim, she's like, just go to bed. And I was like,
yeah, I did say just go to bed.
So
she's like, okay.
So she does listen.
She did then.
On a fruity pebble bar.
And then the next morning she woke up, she was just fine. Like I said,
I threw it away. It wasn't one of those like, I'll try it again. It was like, that was not,
That was not it.
It really shut her brain off, and she went to bed. Yeah. It was great.
Good times.
So let's talk more about what that first conversation, so you had tried it, you knew how your body felt with it, and you're like, okay, it's time to tell mom, right? Like, walk us through what that pre-conversation looked like.
In the movies where you see people talking to themselves in the mirror and you're like, okay, guy, that was me.
Yeah, well, she did both sides of the conversation. She knew exactly what I was going to say.
Because we're very similar, where it's almost sometimes good and bad. But in that moment, I was like, I can almost try to walk myself through, but I planned it worst case scenario to prep for that. Best case scenario, I agree, this is great for you. Worst case, I would be disowned and I would cry in a ball, and that would be that, but we would work on it. But fortunately, it didn't go that way. But the biggest thing to me was making sure I was firm, confident, and strong, which I felt like hadn't seen that in a while. And I felt like just the way I approached her in general with the conversation was enough for her to be like, I'm listening. And just, I felt like you could it wasn't even just hear it, you could see it.
Yeah.
In my body language, and you could tell, like, this is something that's working. I can see it. But the biggest thing to me was just the honesty. I had to be, and if anybody takes anything from this episode, it's, if you're gonna be honest with someone, you have to be 150. Not even one part can you withhold part of the truth or kind of not tell, because that's when it all falls apart. You have to be honest, like, hey, I'm not doing well with my anxiety, which is hard to tell because you're afraid they're going to think, what did I do wrong as a parent? And that's the last thing you want. It's like, sometimes being an adult is just hard. And, that was my probably bigger fear in it is when I go to her with this, what is she going to blame herself for? Like, I don't.
Right. Is she going to be disappointed in herself or in me?
Right. Like, oh, good. I, sent my kid to drug. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I just need her to know it's nothing like that. And our relationship, I'm very, very, very thankful for. And I think that kind of helped. Just maybe at first she was like, well, is it? And I'm like, no, just immediately. And she's like, okay, move on. Like, it was just kind of natural reaction, immediate no. And
yeah, I would have to say that we'd had many a conversation about many other topics, and she came at this one in a different manner than normal, and that immediately let me think, okay, this is really important to her. This is something she's true. This isn't one of her little off the cuff harebrained little ideas that we've got going here.
Harebrained ideas?
I know. But it was more of a, this is really serious, or this is something she needs, and gave me the impression that if I did have a contradictory opinion, she was going to listen to what I had to say too. Might not change what she was going to do, but she would at least, she would have listened to what I said. And honestly, my only thing was, you need to be smart about it. And if it gets to a point where you're relying on it more than you think you should, you need to let me know that.
And I had to stay in the legal lane.
Yeah.
Like, know your laws. It's not legal here, so you stay on what's legal here. And if that eventually becomes illegal, we find something else. Like, it was very clear of, I'm not going to look the other way and pretend it's all, because that's not,
Right. So to be clear and to clear things up, so our main office is in New Mexico.
Correct.
But you guys are here
on the
East Coast in Georgia. And so recreational use is not legal here, but things like Delta 8 is.
Yes.
And so we just want to clear that up so that way.
Yes, I'm big. I would never promote finding loopholes or, I know a guy. You don't. You never really fully know. Just stay with what's right. Stay with what your gut will tell you. Like, if you're having to go to sleep to do something wrong, you're not sleeping well in general. And I know you're not, like, everyone knows right and wrong. It's from the kindergarten they teach you that. So it's just, and if it's something that wasn't right, she would have immediately picked up on that, and I knew that. So for once, this conversation, I felt like I didn't have anything to prove. She was going to see it. And I was like, I'm just going to talk normally, and she's going to be able to pick up on it for once. And it was that, I don't want to say that easy, because I know it's not. I know going to be a parent is not easy. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it or trust us when we say it was a lot of conversations prior to this that weren't this easy, and I lost, but
and that's what we're trying to promote here is how to have the hard to have conversations, whether it's mother daughter, father son, brother sister. Like, how do you have this conversation? Like, hey, I have this problem, and I think cannabis or a derivative is a solution. So that's what we're promoting here. So to further that, like, let's talk about, like, how did you. It sounds like you kind of heard it coming or saw it coming, knew it was going to happen. But what were your reactions to the conversation, other than her asking or telling and responding?
Shocked that she was being so mature about it.
Hey now.
I think that I was impressed. Might be the best word for it. I was impressed with the way that she did it, because, especially when she feels like something may not go her way, she will tend to get defensive immediately.
Pouty. She's looking for the word pouty. She's being nice.
No, defensive is the word I wanted to say. And then she will even, walk away. Maybe come back, maybe not come back. But in this particular situation, she was firmly planted where she was. I could tell that she wasn't in a defensive mode. And that makes me listen a little bit better, because if I think it's going to be one of those where we're about to pop off, because I didn't say, oh, okay, honey, yeah, that's great, and it was a 2-minute conversation and she left. It was questions back and forth, You know, where are you getting it from? Is this legal? Are you, you know, you're not buying this on some
Show me it's legal.
You're
It
not-
wasn't just,
yeah.
is it, show me.
Yeah, you're not buying this in some back alley somewhere that you
Right, you don't
just
have a
don't
plug. You
yeah,
have,
you do.
yeah.
You know, and you know, is it? Are you trying to sugarcoat this for me, and you're actually doing something harder than this?
Is it for a boy?
Is some guy making you do this? Like, you know, there was. You know, I asked questions, and she didn't get defensive about any of them, and that was pretty much the trigger for me. That okay, she has done her research. She is serious about this, and then she wanted to basically prove it to me that, like, you know, next time I have one of these little anxiety attacks, I'm going to tell you. And then I got to see how it made her. And, you know, she tried other ways to deal with her anxiety that were not productive. And this one was. And, you know, and it may or may not work for everyone, but it did work for her. And she did not want to be, she didn't want to pop pills. Like, she didn't want to be put on
synthetic.
a medication that, like she said, you know, her brother had some when he was younger, and they put him on something that, you know, made him lethargic. It made him gain weight, and
It just took the light behind his eye.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be a zombie.
yeah. So she didn't want to go that route. She didn't want to numb herself with alcohol to get through it. This worked for her.
I eat candy anyway, so a little gummy. I was like, oh,
We did do our fair share of chocolate.
But I will say, to be fair, we had, I'd say, one or two prior serious conversations, like, you know, just as important and just as serious of a, they did not go well at all. So I learned from those, like, how not to approach her or how to handle it. And that kind of helped with this, is what not to do, what to do. And I was more, again, that gut feeling of I'm right on this. And I know I'm right. With the other ones, I was like, you're fighting for your life. Good luck. She's going to see right through you. But if I was to give advice for anyone on how to start this kind of relationship and this kind of conversation, the first one is not easy. And it's probably not going to go well, but that means you're trying and you're doing it. So to keep doing it. I don't ever promote, like, not trying again, because at the end of the day, I realized after I lost every time, her intentions were always what's best for me. It wasn't what I wanted to hear, it wasn't how I wanted to hear it, and it wasn't where I wanted to hear it, but it was what I needed to hear, and it was what was for best, you know, long run. I saw that. But just keep that in mind. If someone's not 100% on board with something, you can either prove it, because they may need to see it, or you'll eventually see it that it's not what's right. So just stick to what you feel is right and fold on what you know is wrong, and just swallow your pride a little bit and move on to the next serious conversation.
Yeah, and being the person, you know, whether you're the mother or just the friend, if you're the person receiving the information, you've got to be open to hearing what they have to say. Even if your gut reaction is, I'm not going to like this, don't shut them down immediately. You know, let them speak. And if you still feel that way, then you can shut them down. Or you might learn something yourself.
Right.
Because, you know, obviously we're a different generation, and I grew up in a time where it was, you know, after the Woodstock era, but before now, where it was kind of seen, it was more like you might smoke pot in...
On the DL.
Yes.
Right, and so that was one of the next questions.
And it wasn't, so, you know, and I was raised in the South, very Southern Baptist, you know, my mom, I can remember many a time she'd be like, do I smell something? Let me smell your hair. You know, and I'm just like, what are you doing? You know, and you may have been around people that were doing it, but you weren't doing it, but it was going to, like Shannon said, we have to carry. It holds the scent. So, you know, I grew up at a time where it was, you know, not really taboo, because
everybody was doing it.
Everybody was doing it, but
they
it
were
was kind of
hiding it.
on the, you know, like you said, on the DL. Whereas now it's a much more, we're talking about gummies because of the state that we live in, but cannabis in and of itself, you smoke it, whatnot.
Right.
It's just viewed at differently now. And like she said, my father had cancer. And growing up, I wish they used it medicinally then for the nausea, because the times I woke up in the middle of the night because I could hear my father being sick, if he had had that ability then, not that I think it might have saved his life, but some of the misery he did have to go through would have been gone.
Right.
So, I like how it's progressed medicinally that way. And technically she's using it medicinally to deal with her anxiety. And, it's kind of nice, and, and I'm a business person. And also when we test for drugs, when we're hiring somebody, they tell me, oh, they tested positive for, And I'm like, okay. Okay. I just don't think it's the big bad wolf that, like, back when I was younger, I was led to believe it was.
My grandma rested in peace.
We probably still wouldn't tell her that you were doing it today.
No,
Sure,
I think
alive.
she still thinks my ankle tattoo is jewelry, because I'm like, I'm never telling you.
Yeah. And my grandmother did not take well to my tattoos. I think she was sick for like 3 days. So I could only imagine if I even told her I was having a conversation about cannabis. Definitely huge generational shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So you already said that your views of cannabis kind of shifted as you got older, and definitely like as you guys started having conversations. But was there like a particular moment or piece of like information that Shannon shared that like changed your perspective?
I don't know, speaking of your hat, but it's probably more of just seeing, because I didn't have like the bags under my eyes were Gucci at that point. Like, eyes were red not from gummies, but from not being able to sleep. So if I can maybe try and help out with answering, it's probably more of seeing the results than hearing them. It was like, okay, I see what she's saying and she's right. And then maybe it led to Grandpa. What you're saying is like, oh, this could have been the piece that could have been provided to him as well, type thing that you were just saying.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of opened your eyes of, wow, this is a real thing. This isn't what people negatively stereotype, like, oh, they're just using it as an excuse.
Yeah,
like, it's like
I had to bridge that gap between how I was raised versus how it can, because how it's, and I had friends who I was very close to growing up, and they, smoked marijuana, and but they did it recreationally, they did it just for fun, they did it to just get high and lay around and get the munchies. And so I had my mom who was like, no, and then I had those friends, and I was like, and they were very understanding. If they would ask, because they're very polite.
We're in the South.
They're very polite, but they didn't push me if I said no. And there were other people in the group that also said no. But it still made my hair smell. But then then I shifted into, she's not doing it for that purpose, and I don't mind that people are doing that, but that's not what she was going to do with it. And I had to sort of, like she said, I had to see it happen, because you gotta question, okay, is she selling me this in this way, but that is where she's headed, and she knows that's where she's headed.
Is she getting smarter?
She is gonna, eventually I'm just gonna start seeing that she's not going out anymore, she's not caring about how she looks, she's just gonna lay around and all the time just be kind of out of it.
Like that old commercial with the deflated girl on the couch?
Yes.
You love that commercial.
So it was, it didn't take long either for me to see that I could watch her get that where she's at her limit, watch her calm down, know that she just went to bed calmly that night, get up the next day at her normal time, get ready, go to work, whatever. So it just seeing that, oh, okay, she is using it for exactly what she said she was going to, and it is helping her. So it was like I had to bridge those gaps.
It's like in the Santa Claus, seeing is believing.
Oh,
Yeah,
you took the words out of my mouth.
Did I really?
Yeah, that's all I could think about.
Yeah, it was like,
Seeing is believing. So we talked about your melting face.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was fun.
Have there been any other like memorable moments or experiences that maybe have brought you close together? Like, this sounds like it's one of those Thanksgiving dinner memories that we talk about in 20 years. Hey, you remember when Shannon's face was melting?
I think it's like every 20 days they like to just kind of remind me like, you remember that? And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. Yeah, I think there's plenty.
They don't wait for special occasions.
Every day's a special occasion when it comes to Shannon mess ups. Like, it's just a good singer. I mean, that's a good one that we like.
That one's hard to talk.
I can think of one.
Because it was one of the first ones, too.
Mhm.
It's like, it's one
Good
of the
proof, Shannon.
It
Like,
was
I'm
one
like,
of the biggest and one of the most dramatic and the first. Where we were all like,
It's the
oh yeah,
Fruity
you're
Pebbles.
convincing us this is a really good plan.
To be fair, I want a raccoon anyways, so the whole trying to get a raccoon wasn't a side effect.
And you start feeding on marshmallows. It was a lot.
I think I was like pelting them at him though.
So
I was
maybe
like,
this is a good place to put in there, like, make sure your butt
Disclaimer.
tender or
Yes. Know what you're
Yeah.
doing. Like, remember your training. Don't get sidetracked. Like, oh, Fruity Pebbles. I asked no question. Like, I knew better, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Make sure where you go that they're also educated. They're not just pushing, oh, look,
Yes.
their Fruity Pebbles are going to go bad. Push it.
Yeah, like the little Rice Krispies. Yeah, right.
It was cute looking. I'll give her that. It was cute.
Yeah, I am drawn to cute, but
So
in
yummy.
this kind of
It was colorful.
scenario.
It was cute.
I will say I don't have another major one like that with you present. I have another major one that scarred me a little bit with some friends, a birthday party in my honor. But this is a prime example of make sure when, you know, this is a serious, at the end of the day, it's a serious situation. Like any kind of prescription, you know, it's never to be taken lightly. It's never to be like, oh, it's not a toy. Like, you know, it's an adult conversation for a reason. And I spent a good majority of my night on a back deck with my face on the deck because it was so cold because I had the spins, but there was no one there that had my best interest in hand to realize that I didn't know spins was a thing. So it felt like I was on a constant, you know, that ride at Six Flags where you get in, it's like you're in a bucket and it just takes you in a circle like that.
Mhm.
I couldn't get off. And I thought I was going to just throw up constantly. And I was like, this is a prime example of why you only people you trust. And we're big advocates on family's not just necessarily blood. It's who you trust, who you can be open and honest with, who you can have these hard conversations with, who can help you to then maybe go to that family member that's not as easy to approach, but they can say like, hey, I'm going to be the, you know, unbiased party to, you know, to
Yeah,
whatever.
and you wanna
but
be with people who have your best interests at heart, because if it does go bad, like
they left me on that deck.
Like,
Like,
you don't
in the middle of
want to
January.
be with people who are going to be like, this is so funny. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. And start videoing you and
That's
throwing you on
exactly what
social
happened, right.
media instead of worrying about, is she
Should
going
we
to
take
choke
her
on
to
her
the
own
hospital?
vomit and
Right.
die?
Yeah.
Like, to know that she was with people who would not be concerned if she was to choke on her own vomit and die, that is concerning to me, which is another reason why she's always very honest with us.
Yeah, and obviously I hung out with them and I worked with them and, you know, everything was fine and it wasn't like I held it against them, but I just knew my limits there. Like, I will not in a serious situation as such, or I probably won't take your advice on such. And if people are able, that's, gosh, round of applause to you, because I don't know how you can do both, but you know, in the unfortunate, the silver lining was knowing my limits. If I take a gummy, there is no drinking. I will not be going to a party. Because I will not be sleeping on a deck in the middle of January with my face like practically like, what's that other Christmas movie with the kid and he's in the, you know, and the kid's stuck to the pole.
It's his tongue, and it's
Or
a
yeah.
Christmas story.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's how I was so scared that was going to happen, but I was like, I have to stay on this because the tile in the bathroom was not cold enough. But they left me out there. And I was like, it's not that they're bad friends, it's just nobody here's sober. There's nobody here to watch. There's nobody here to make sure, hey, is this a mature handling or is this a maybe more immature on how things can be portrayed in that negative stereotype. So it just kind of, in a silver lining, was a good
It was a
Learning
learning
experience.
experience.
Yes, exactly. I feel like everyone probably maybe needs that one. Maybe not as dramatic as mine. Please don't do it. It's not fun. But it's just confirmation of, yeah, this is why I do this with adults who understand, and it's not a toy. It's not a party trick. It's
And I think
Yeah.
that goes with anything, right?
Right.
Like if you're gonna do anything, if you're gonna drive with somebody in a car, you're gonna go to a party, you should at least have at least one like buddy, that you trust and can be there to say, okay, hey, you've had enough, or hey, maybe we go ahead and not do that and that.
Yes. Right.
Correct.
So we talked about your memorable moments, which there are some with Holly, with your mom, and some with some friends who just left you to freeze.
They're ones I'm glad she wasn't there.
Right.
Yes.
But looking at it from a different perspective, right? We talked about friends. We talked about using it for self-care. We talked about ensuring that you are buying from a reputable location and a knowledgeable individual or company. But what we haven't talked about is how maybe cannabis has influenced your professional lives. Like,
Yeah.
we kind of know where it's influenced your professional life, Shannon.
Love to hear it.
But if we didn't mention earlier, because I don't think you did, that Shannon is our digital marketing manager, and she does a bang-up job.
I meant to if I didn't. I think I
You
tried.
did.
I did.
You
I
did.
I think I
Okay.
didn't last time. This time I did. Yes.
You did.
Yeah, I did.
You did mention it.
Well, we're reinforcing that
Yes.
she's an asset here. And so we know kind of how that influenced your professional life, but if you have more to add to that, like why you decided to join us. But I think really what I want to know is how maybe it influenced your life, Holly, like your professional life, if it did.
Did it change your view on because you mentioned
Because
earlier
Mhm.
the drug test,
Well, yeah,
maybe
well, I hire people,
Mhm.
and we do drug tests like most businesses do. And like I said, I think that drug testing for that.
so when they come back and they pop positive, are you just kind of at this point for what?
That's
Like,
exactly
you're
what I do. I'm like,
and
really
then,
for what? And then, yeah.
Because let's all be real. There's some red flags,
but
and
now
there's
we,
some
even businesses are becoming a little more progressive in the states where it is legal. If someone does pop positive, we immediately contact them and we're like, okay, well, you're positive for THC or whatever it is, and we're like, do you have a prescription? Because if you do, then that's.
If you don't, I know a gross battery acid tasting drink, and you can redo it in a day.
That's not what we
Alright,
say.
well, you should.
We're
just
not
kidding.
promoting that.
No, we don't promote that. Cut that. So then we give them
You give them a call and
if they can say that it is medically prescribed to them, then it's okay that they pop positive for it. As long as you have a script for it, you're good to go, and we will hire you.
Now you're a regional manager for multiple states.
Correct.
So you have, are any of your states? Because I lose track. Because you just did a shift change for other states. I don't think you have any more legal. Cause
I don't know what states it is legal in.
your research is doing great.
it's company policy versus state legality. Which one trumps the other?
The state that you're in will trump, because like I said, like if you were here, I don't think that even a medical card is gonna get you out of it in the state of Georgia, but there are states that it will, and we will go with that state, and our HR department is fully aware which states it is, and they will tell us that.
Maine, because when we were there, I was like, you get to be legal
Well,
and lobster rolls? Ballin'.
I not over Maine,
that
so
sounds great.
I wouldn't know.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's we do allow it now, which is funny because I've been with the company that I'm with now for 12 years, and in the beginning, it didn't matter if you had a medical DOT card or
Was it a
DOT.
gradual change, or was it just 1 year? They're like, we don't care.
It was a gradual.
Oh.
It was as times have changed over the past, I would say 5 to 7 years.
So you think COVID may have had?
No, I think
We're all holding on good.
it was
Hire
before.
anybody.
It was before COVID that it started to shift, and I do know that there has been talk of even just taking that off the list of things that we even test for.
Or maybe even the limit. Like, if it's like a normal dose, it's like, you're.
I think we've already done that.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're next.
I think we've already.
Things.
There can be a certain amount, and they won't say anything. But if it's over a limit, then it's like, do you have a prescription for this?
I think that's fair. That's,
right, like
again,
they toked up
moderation.
before they went and took their drug test, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, like if you're doing it during the day too, because that's usually when you take your. So
Look,
it's like,
I'm not going to say where it is I work, but I do know that we will even if we're interviewing someone. I mean, I've done it. If you're interviewing someone and we have to say, we're going to do a drug test and a background check. You don't have to tell me if you can pass or fail, but I have to let you know.
that polite warning.
We are going to perform one, and then you can watch a body language and be all like, so is it the drug test or the background check? So with the background check, it's kind of like I really can't do much for you. Just how illegal are you? But but if they're kind of like, would 2 weeks help you out? Should I send you in a couple of weeks? It'd be good.
You need to work 2 weeks at your other.
I had one person that I interviewed one time. I'll never forget. This was funny, and I said that to them, and they went, they looked down the floor, and then they kind of sort of make eye contact, and I'm like,
my kids.
I'm like, is there a problem? Well, I did just vacation in Denver.
Oh yeah,
and I was like,
you're gonna need maybe
all right
3
then.
weeks.
So you need a little bit of time, and they're like, can I have some time?
Like, good.
They're like, it's not. I don't normally, and I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if you're telling the truth right now. But then again, we also do. If you get injured on the job, we will drug test you, and if you fail that, then you become a danger to yourself and others because you came to work. Though I don't care what anyone does in their free time.
right.
I honestly don't. They could start.
Don't. We don't need examples.
Driving off as they leave my parking lot. I don't care what you do at home. I'm not telling them what I do. I don't care what you do at home, but it cannot impact your ability to do your job and to be safe doing it.
Right, like you're not allowed to drink on the job. You shouldn't be allowed to toke on the job.
I think it goes back to the whole handling moderation, being an adult, doing it properly type thing. And
but being responsible.
I do feel like that has kind of lessened.
I made you a cool ranger, cool momager.
No.
Yes.
It's not just me.
It's
me. I'm saying that most businesses in general, I feel, have become a little more tolerant.
I would agree, along with tattoos and stuff. It just kind of became one of those things where it's like, is that really the problem? I think we have bigger fish.
When I started this same job, if you were of a certain level, and you had I have a tattoo on my wrist. If I went to a business meeting, I had to wear long sleeves. Like you didn't want your tattoos to show. Disney, you used to couldn't work for them if you had facial hair,
colored hair,
and tattoos. But they've lessened on that. So we've lessened on the tattoo thing as well. Like I don't have to cover.
I think they go hand in hand. Like it's kind of the generation, that millennial, just kind of like. Hey, let me just show you what I can do. Don't take the
I'm like, we're not going to be able to hire anyone.
Yeah, we're all getting tatted. It's therapy.
Well, and I think that takes us back to, the views change as the generations change. And I know individuals who were in the military and had to do the same thing. They had to wear long sleeves. They couldn't have tattoos, on their neck, behind their ears. Yep. There was a lot. You couldn't have, piercings, you had to take them out, those kind of things. And the same thing in the business, like you were saying, you had to wear long sleeves and cover it up, and then little by little you could have 3/4 of your arm showing a tattoo. And so the acceptance has changed as the years have gone on, and I think that runs parallel to what we're talking about here. Your parents' generation, Holly, had one view of cannabis, and it was that stoner, lazy, outlook of
Woodstock.
People. Yeah, Woodstock. Love everyone.
Maybe over partaking. Just a tad,
but there was probably still people that consumed responsibly, right?
Oh,
that just not looped in improper, and you're like,
right,
we'll fight for you guys now.
And the same thing is still true.
Yeah.
And then with as the generations go on, that's changed.
I will say that's one of the hard conversations we had. I have a wrist tattoo. I have some tattoos. All of my tattoos. I have 19. Majority of them you can't see unless I'm in a bathing suit. And that was strictly planned, and mostly it was just to save face with her because I didn't want the argument. The one on my wrist, I took a watch with me so I could say the watch band cover.
It wasn't me, it was my mother.
That's what she says.
She
rest in peace.
She would wear a one-piece bathing suit when my mother was going to be around because she didn't want her.
That's respectful.
At some point you realize it's an argument more than you're gonna get on it, and I don't want to upset. You're not gonna be able to, the generations. There's too many in between. Like, you're not gonna be able to. So I'm gonna respect your generation and your mindset. It's not, it's just we're not gonna be able to see eye to eye. But with her, when my stepdad passed, I'm getting a half sleeve, and her face was not thrilled. We'll put it that way. But then I went to her and I told her the design idea, and it was very personal, and it was very something that if I lost a job or I didn't get a promotion or something, I was okay with it because it was important to me. So it's very him, it's very his daughter, it's very me, it's personal, it's important, it's enough to say I'm not going to hide this because I'm not ashamed of this. But I'm in that generation where I saw the shift a little bit more gradual, whereas the other generations were kind of like, not you gotta prove it, but it's kind of how with anything, it's like, I'll give you an inch and let's see what you do with it. And I feel like that's with anything, and that's how it slowly progressed. As long as it's not anything highly just not okay, again, right and wrong.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, well, I mean, it's fine, whatever. I didn't get stuck with a needle. She paid for it, type thing. But it's funny because now my boyfriend and I, we got little permanent pinky promise, and it's just weird to me to know, like, at one point it was like all strategic. Can this hide on an interview, can this hide? And now it's nice to know that it gives me hope, the fight that we're doing for this, the properly presenting cannabis. Right. I believe in it, and I know it can happen because I've seen it with others. I've been a part of it, and I've done it myself. Like, I went from hiding tattoos, being strategic, to I have a little tiny hand tattoo, and if that's gonna be what you judge me on, then maybe that says more about you than me. And that's kind of why I went into this role in general with this company. It wasn't just you, it wasn't just Judy, it wasn't just the other partners where I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a family. Like, we're all in the same fight. We're very different. We're all very different, but to our core, we're very same. It's amazing to be a part of and see it, especially with mine, because there is that generational still. Like, it's like what I have with her, I have with a lot of people, and it's so fun to learn and hear. And oh my gosh, I could listen to Bruce talk for hours because he's just, oh my gosh, I call him like Bill and I, but like a little bit Snoop Dogg kind of vibe. But it's just nice to be a part of something of all these successful people that people probably wouldn't realize, with that negative connotation of stereotype and everything. But it's like, yeah, they partake, and you're like, really? Even Snoop Dogg himself, I'm like, he's a businessman. Like, everyone's like, oh, there's Martha and there's Snoop, and I'm like, they're the same. Like, they are both successful
and
business.
I think that's a beautiful way to like show the different, like the yin and yang of the people who are consuming, right? You have proper like 5-course meal Martha, and you have Snoop rapping.
Stereotyped himself.
Since we've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
I watched this show. I had a crush on his son. It's fine. We're all fine. You don't remember?
We're learning a little bit more every day about
I
Shannon.
don't even know what show you're talking about.
So, who's your buddy?
Who's your buddy and who's your know-me? I'm making this known. I'm making our brand known because I'm hashtagging it. That's my role here as the digital marketing manager. I want to clarify with our listeners. We have enough episodes in to make that known. So we welcome all friends, family, because I'm big on, like, you don't partake, but it's nice to educate and be a part and learn and, be a part of it. And it helps our relationship, and just, you can then take it to work, and it just spreads. And that's any change in life, proper good change. We only want proper good change. That's how it works. Word of mouth, like just being a part of some kind of movement. So we don't want to turn away anyone. We don't want to present ourselves as only, partakers. If you're not, we welcome everyone. So you're our buddy, and then chilling with our know-me's, because we're a greenhouse and gardening. So if you partake in gardening, you are a know-me of ours instead of a homie. Yeah. And you partake.
And a homie altogether.
Yes.
Well, ladies, as we wrap up, I want to know What advice would you share with families who are maybe navigating similar conversations?
I think we touched on it really a couple of times.
How about you give parental advice and I'll give the
Just
kid advice.
be
The younger.
Be open to what they have to say, and especially if you're a parent. I can only speak to it as the parent in this situation. If you're having this conversation with your child, they're obviously grown. You're not going to have this conversation, hopefully, with a 9-year-old.
No, you definitely are not.
So you need to make that shift of realizing this is an adult to an adult conversation. And if they are coming to you and they're willing to open up to you and talk to you about it, it is very, very important to them. You may have wisdom that can guide them into a different way, but you've got to be open and honest, because if you're not with this situation, down the line there could be something more serious, and they're not going to come to you because you haven't made them feel safe. It needs to be a safe environment, and just talk it out,
Hashed out.
Yeah, let's say that. That was good.
Pun intended.
And that would be my biggest advice. Just be open and willing to listen, and let them finish speaking. If you know where it's going and you know you probably don't like what it is, still let them finish. Let them say what they have to say, because they may drop a little nugget or something that's actually really good that may even change your mind a bit. You've got to be willing to realize they're now grown and it is a different generation, and maybe you need to adapt a little bit. That would be my advice.
Great advice. Shannon, as the child coming to the parent, what would you say would be the one advice to young adults, biggest piece of advice for young adults coming to their parents to say, hey, I want to try this, or this is what I'm thinking?
Choose wisely. Don't choose a yes man. Don't choose that person who may not have your best intent, there's nothing wrong with being a friend, whatever. That's not the proper person to have this conversation with. You could tell them down the line and, whatever, but that doesn't need to be the person that you run something like this by. Whether it's a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, it needs to be someone older, wiser. It's a conversation to be had with that other generation of, not a test of can I sway you, but you want that wiser elder opinion, and you want to make sure, I'm not putting an age on you, I'm just millennials especially, I love us, but we like to think we're right all the time, which I am. I don't care what you say, but you do need someone who's gonna test you to make sure you've done your proper research, not question you in a sense of doubt and whatever, but you need that person who gives you
challenges you.
Yeah, make sure you've done your research properly, you know what you're talking about, and this is the best interest for you. And if you don't have someone like that to start off with, because it's not just one conversation you're about to have. I then had to have it with my dad, with my brother, it's the first person you choose, that's going to set the standard and the vibe and the energy and how it's going to go. So if it goes well, it's okay, you feel better about it, and you're easier, and it's great to tell. And if you don't have that first person, Vicky, reach out to Holly. She's great. She loves her little extended children. She'll get you a stocking for Christmas. Trust me. We are a safe haven as much as we are a stoner's haven. If you don't have that person, or you want to just a little bit more, or run it by us. Hey, is this how you would have presented to your mom? No, I would not recommend a screenshot of an email at all. But just if you have questions, or if you want to just one-on-one, my DMs are open. We're going to tag Holly in this one. So she's going to be that pretend, quote unquote, they can't see his mother, that can show you, if I was your mom, I would tell you to circle back and try again. Or yes, this is how I would want Shannon to have approached me. Just find that one person, and we are very, very happy to be that for our buddies or our nominees.
No.
Don't do that.
Well, thank you both for sharing your journey with us, and thank you for our listeners for joining us for this special episode of The Greenhouse. Remember, breaking down barriers starts with openness and understanding, so keep the dialogue going, and let's continue to challenge the stereotypes together.
And tell Judy you guys want us on another episode, so she'll let us come back. You know.
Tune in next week for more candid conversations. Until then, keep those good vibes growing and stay lifted.